All right, let's get an understanding then on those remarks made by Police Minister Bheki. I'm joined now by legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala. Good to have you, Kuzeni, and thank you very much for your time. So we're led to understand there are 7 cars, 6 SAPS, 1 SANDF, 5 carried on, 2 cars pulled off to go and address a matter. The Deputy President says, even in his own statement, I was in the convoy but was nowhere near the incident. Now we know that the VIP protection unit was acting to protect the Deputy President. What happens when you are not clearly the eyewitness, but the acts were committed to protect you? What's the effect of that in law?
Good evening to you and also to your viewers. Now, it's first going to place the accused in this particular matter that they were on duty. Once you're on duty, they're meant to do everything which is according to the law, in line with how you were trained, in line with how they're supposed to execute your duties on a daily basis. Now, your sole purpose, your sole job is to protect the Deputy President and not to engage in any attacks which are going to take place. If you are going to use your position to then attack, then it remains a problem. Remember, when it comes to the South African Police Service, they use any attacking mode or any guns which they may have, any application of force to defend themselves and not to attack. They are not there to attack, they are there to defend. Now, the number one question would be, in this particular case, what was the attack which was directed towards the Deputy President? If the Deputy President is going to say, I was not even aware that an attack was going to take place or had taken place, or there was an attempt in the convoy in which I was traveling in, it makes their case in terms of proving their innocence very difficult and makes the state, the evidence of the state, very convincing, and it increases the chances of the state being able to win at the end of the day. So we may see the Deputy President going to court as a witness in order to confirm the nature or the sequence of events that took place on that day, but most importantly, it would be to confirm that he wasn't aware that any attack was directed to him, thus proving that the retaliation by the VIP protection individuals or police officers was completely unwarranted, it was overboard, and that engagement then resulted in them breaking the law in terms of being able to preserve it.
So very interesting that you say that. The statement by the police minister now says that the 2 cars pulled away to deal with the matter. Now, that would mean the Deputy President would have known or suggest to know that there is a matter. And so these 2 cars pulled off to deal with the matter. Now the question would be, what is that matter? And he could have been an eyewitness to that matter, but maybe not an eyewitness to the incident of the assault.
Definitely, because you see, there must have been some sort of communication which is going to go to the Deputy President. At the end of the day, he needs to be aware that there's such an attack which is taking place and how to react or to be alert and to listen to instructions much more carefully than he would have said within his speed. He would have been enjoying the journey from point A to point B. If there's such an attack that has taken place, it would be not even common courtesy as an issue of protocol to then say, Deputy President, there is an attack or there is a threat that has been identified. There are 2 cars which are going to deal with the matter. We are going to proceed in a normal manner in which we are doing now, and further instructions will then follow later. That's the type of instructions that I would have expected that you would have received on the day. But when you go to court to provide evidence, the state is simply going to say, Deputy President, were you communicated or was there any communication made to you that there was an attack or a threat that has taken place and there are 2 police vehicles or 2 vehicles that belong to your convoy that went to deal with it? And if the answer is no, then it increases and bulks up the evidence by the state in terms of saying, here you have police individuals that knew exactly what to do, knew exactly the type of powers in which they possessed. They went out of their cars throwing guns, which is against the law, by the way, because the Firearms and Ammunition Act says that the minute you pull out a gun, you must be ready to shoot. And it's taken as an offense on its own, pointing of a firearm. So the minute you engage in that, the minute you've exerted force on those individuals, you are now crossing the Rubicon of being a protector. You are now the attacker. Your guns as a police officer are there to defend. They are not there to attack. So on that basis, then you must be found guilty of the assault GPH in which you have been accused of. It bolts the case or it assists the state in proving his case beyond reasonable doubt that indeed the members on the day acted beyond their scope of their employment, and by acting beyond the scope of their employment, were engaging in criminal activities.
This is what the minister says. He says, when I spoke to him, he said he realized when he was at home that there were 2 cars that had peeled off. But secondly, he says he didn't know until he was told later of the incidents of what had happened. So he was informed of the incident and what has happened. As the deputy president, was there any obligation for him at that particular point to report anything, understanding, I suppose, what could have happened?
Legally speaking, I would say no, because he's not an eyewitness to any of the incident that has taken place. So even if he goes to a police station, he's going to say, I have been informed. It's pure hearsay evidence that he will be relaying. But as the responsible citizen, a number 2 individual, second citizen of the country, it is up to him to then say, can you please explain to me what was the incident about? Did it involve members of the public? Were there any individuals that were hurt? These are the people in which I'm concerned and that I care about. So in any instances in which they're going to brush up with the law, I want to know exactly what has happened. Thirdly, let's look at the brand of the deputy president, the office on its own, and also that of Mr. Paul Mashatile. The last thing you want to happen as a politician is to have individuals that are connected to you being perceived as being power hungry or overpowering poor, unsuspecting members of the public and engaging in activities which are unbecoming of a person who is in that particular position. I would have expected him the very next day, a statement is issued, or the same day as a statement is issued, visitation to the victims has been done and then conducted, to simply say, yes, I understand that the investigations which are still taking place, but at the end of the day, you're members of the public. I want to know, as a concerned citizen, as a concerned deputy president, in terms of saying, what actually happened on that day? Let's try and check whether there's some sort of justice that ought to happen. I'm not going to interfere in any of the investigation as he's doing now. I'm simply going to participate. But as a concerned citizen, I want to know what exactly happened. Let me hear your side of the story and let's take it from there.
So what made them pull off would probably be critical here. But I suppose the minister is also making the statement to say there is no liability or blame that should be leveled at the deputy president. He was at home. He was not an eyewitness to this. He only learned later that the 2 cars peeled off. As far as liability in that sense is concerned, would you say the deputy president is in the clear?
Legal liability, I would say partly yes. There's no way in which you could have known that an incident such as this one would have taken place. Otherwise, he would have been able to apply his mind and sort of adjudicate the matter personally and say, this is how I'm going to step in. But from a social perspective, you are dealing with members of the public that have been allegedly assaulted by members that protect you on a daily basis. The most natural thing to do, whether you're the deputy president or not, is to go to that family and to conduct a further sort of investigation and inquiry and say, what exactly happened? I want to hear your side of the story. If it's members of my team that should be disciplined, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. I may not even wait for the public uproar that took place. I'm going to place them on special leave myself, because while this dark cloud is over their heads and while I'm still conducting this investigation, just to make sure that the people who are guiding me are people who are beyond approach, are people, most importantly, who know how to apply the law. As they are members of the SAPS, they are trained exactly how to handle guns and to handle hostile situations. There are a number of times in which you will find bad drivers who are going to drive in very unbecoming ways during the normal course of driving, even when it comes to normal citizens. Worse when you have your convoy, which is going at very high speed or forcing individuals off the road, that people are not going to take kindly to that. It is part and parcel of your job, and you must be trained to deal with those type of consequences. Now, if you're not going to be able to control your anger, and maybe even call it the extreme case of road rage from the side of the VIP protection, then the deputy president has not a legal obligation, but a social obligation of saying, let me go and diffuse the situation. I'm for the people. If I'm for the people, I want to make sure that I'm able to protect their interests no matter what has taken place.
Kuzain, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. Mpumelelo Zikalala there, giving us some legal analysis to the statements made by the Minister of Police in Parliament, saying the Deputy President, yes, was part of the convoy but was not there when the incident took place.